What started as a routine late-night interview turned into television chaos when Stephen Colbert blindsided Matthew McConaughey with aggressive questioning about his political views, leading to an explosive confrontation that ended with the Oscar winner storming off set. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was supposed to be another easy promotional appearance for Matthew McConaughey. The actor had come on to discuss his latest film project, settle into the familiar rhythm of late night, banter and charm the audience with his signature laid-back philosophy. But from the moment McConaughey walked onto the stage, something felt different. Colbert's usual theatrical warmth seemed forced, his smile not quite reaching his eyes, as he welcomed the Texas native to thunderous applause. Matthew McConaughey. "Everybody," Colbert announced, gesturing broadly as the actor took his seat. "Always a pleasure to have you back on the show." But there was an edge to his voice that seasoned viewers might have caught, a subtle tension that suggested this wasn't going to be the typical celebrity softball interview. McConaughey, dressed casually in his characteristic style, seemed relaxed and ready for the usual promotional routine. "Great to be back, Stephen. Always enjoy our conversations," he drawled in his familiar cadence, settling into the guest chair with that easy confidence that had made him a Hollywood favorite. The first few minutes proceeded normally enough. Colbert asked about McConaughey's upcoming projects, his family, the usual territory that fills the opening segment of most celebrity interviews. McConaughey responded with his typical blend of philosophical musings and folksy charm, drawing laughs from the studio audience as he shared anecdotes about life in Texas and his approach to selecting film roles. But then Colbert shifted gears. Abruptly, his demeanor changing like a switch had been flipped. "You know, Matthew, I've been thinking about something you said in a recent interview," Colbert began, his tone becoming noticeably sharper. "You mentioned that Hollywood needs to be more accepting of conservative viewpoints. That's an interesting position for someone in your industry." McConaughey's expression remained calm, but there was a slight stiffening in his posture. "Well, Stephen, I think what I was getting at is that we should be able to have conversations across the political spectrum without demonizing each other. That's how democracy works, right?" "Is it, though?" Colbert shot back, leaning forward in his chair. "Because it seems to me like you're doing some pretty sophisticated both-sidesism there. Are you really going to sit here and tell my audience that we need to find common ground with people who want to roll back civil rights?" The audience grew noticeably quieter, sensing the shift in atmosphere. McConaughey's easy smile faltered slightly. "I'm not sure that's a fair characterization of what I said, Stephen. I think most people, regardless of their political affiliation, want what's best for the country. We might disagree on how to get there, but—" "Most people?" Colbert interrupted, his voice rising. "Most people didn't storm the Capitol building. Most people didn't spend 4 years undermining our democratic institutions. But you want us to just shake hands and move on?" McConaughey held up a hand, trying to maintain his composure. "Now hold on, Stephen. I never said anything about shaking hands and moving on. What I'm talking about is having the ability to engage in civil discourse with people who might see the world differently than we do." "Civil discourse," Colbert repeated, mockingly. "That's rich coming from someone who's been awfully quiet about some pretty uncivil things happening in this country. Where was your voice when democracy was literally under attack?" The tension in the studio was now palpable. Audience members were exchanging glances, unsure whether this was part of some planned bit or if they were witnessing a genuine confrontation unfold in real time. McConaughey's jaw tightened, and for the first time since sitting down, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I think you're putting words in my mouth, Stephen," McConaughey said, his voice still controlled but with a harder edge creeping in. "And I think you're oversimplifying some pretty complex issues." Colbert wasn't backing down. If anything, he seemed to be gaining momentum, feeding off the discomfort he was creating. "Complex issues? Like whether or not we should have free and fair elections? Like whether or not people should have basic human rights?" Those seem pretty straightforward to me. That's not what we're talking about here, McConaughey replied, his famous drawl becoming more pronounced as his frustration grew. You're trying to turn this into something it's not. But Colbert was just getting started. Oh, I'm making this into something it's not. Colbert's voice dripped with sarcasm as he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Matthew, you came on my show. You knew what kind of show this is. Did you really think I was going to let you sit here and peddle your enlightened centrism without any pushback? McConaughey's hands gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles whitening. Stephen, I came here to talk about my movie, not to be ambushed with gotcha questions designed to make me look bad. Gotcha questions? Colbert laughed, but there was no humor in it. I asked you about your own words you said publicly. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should think about what that says about your positions. The camera operators were having a field day, capturing every micro-expression, every moment of mounting tension. The audience sat in stunned silence, some looking genuinely disturbed by what they were witnessing. You know what, Stephen? McConaughey's voice was getting louder now, his Texas accent thickening with anger. This is exactly the kind of thing I was talking about. You can't have a conversation without trying to destroy someone who doesn't toe your exact line. Destroy you? Colbert shot back. I'm asking you questions. If you can't handle questions about your public statements, maybe you shouldn't make public statements. That's not what this is, and you know it, McConaughey fired back, pointing an accusatory finger at his host. This is a hit job. You brought me on here under false pretenses so you could grandstand for your audience. Colbert's mask was completely off now, his professional veneer replaced by raw antagonism. False pretenses? You're a public figure who makes political statements. Those statements have consequences. You don't get to hide behind, I'm just an actor, when it's convenient. I'm not hiding behind anything. McConaughey's voice boomed across the studio. But I'm also not going to sit here and let you twist my words to fit whatever narrative you're trying to push. The tension had reached a breaking point. Several audience members were visibly uncomfortable, some whispering to each other, others pulling out phones to record what was clearly becoming a viral moment. Twist your words? Colbert stood up now, towering over his seated guest. You said, Hollywood needs to be more accepting of conservative viewpoints. In the current political climate, that's not neutrality, Matthew. That's taking a side. McConaughey rose to meet him, both men now standing and facing off across the desk that suddenly seemed inadequate as a barrier between them. And what if it is taking a side? What if I think there's value in listening to different perspectives? What if I think your brand of self-righteous intolerance is part of the problem? The words hung in the air like a challenge. Colbert's face, flushed red, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Self-righteous intolerance? That's what you call standing up for democracy? That's what you call opposing fascism? There you go again. McConaughey's voice cracked with frustration. Anyone who doesn't agree with you 100% is a fascist. Anyone who suggests maybe we should try to understand each other instead of screaming past each other is the enemy. Understanding? Colbert's voice was approaching a shout. Now, tell me, Matthew, how do you suggest we understand people who want to strip away voting rights? How do we find common ground with people who think some Americans are worth less than others? McConaughey's face was flushed with anger, his usual laid-back demeanor completely shattered. You're doing it again. You're putting words in my mouth, attributing positions to me that I never took. Am I? Colbert challenged. Because it sounds to me like you're more concerned with appearing reasonable than you are with what's actually right and wrong. The studio audience was completely silent now, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. Camera operators continued to capture every moment, knowing they were witnessing something unprecedented in late-night television. McConaughey took a step closer to Colbert's desk, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You want to know what I think is right and wrong, Stephen? I think it's wrong to invite someone onto your show and then attack them for having the audacity to suggest that maybe, just maybe, we could all benefit from a little more empathy and a little less righteous anger. Colbert matched his intensity, leaning forward across his desk. Empathy? Where's your empathy for the people who are actually being hurt by the policies you want us to be understanding about? That was the final straw. McConaughey's composure, already hanging by a thread, snapped completely. You know what, Stephen? You don't know a damn thing about my empathy. You don't know what I do behind the scenes, what causes I support, or who I help. But you're so busy performing your moral superiority for the cameras that you can't see past your own self-righteousness. Moral superiority? Colbert's voice reached a fever pitch. I'm not the one sitting here trying to both sides human rights. And I'm not the one ambushing guests to score cheap political points, McConaughey roared back. This isn't journalism, Stephen. This isn't holding anyone accountable. This is just you being a bully with a platform. The accusation hit Colbert, like a physical blow. His face contorted with rage as he slammed his hand down on his desk, the sound echoing through the stunned studio. A bully? A bully? I'm trying to get you to take a stand on issues that matter. By attacking me? McConaughey shot back. By twisting everything I say? By refusing to let me explain my actual positions? Yeah, Stephen, that's bullying. That's exactly what a bully does. The audience was now openly uncomfortable, with several people getting up to leave. The camera crew continued filming, but even they seemed uncertain about whether they should keep rolling on what had devolved into a personal attack session. Colbert's professionalism had completely evaporated. You want to explain your positions? Fine. Explain to me how sitting on the fence helps anyone. Explain to me how your both sides bullshit helps people who are actually suffering. McConaughey's hands were shaking with anger now. You want an explanation? Here's one. I think people like you are the reason this country is so divided. You've turned politics into a blood sport where anyone who doesn't think exactly like you is the enemy. Maybe they should be the enemy, Colbert screamed, his face now purple with rage. Maybe some positions don't deserve respect. Maybe some ideas don't deserve a platform. And who gets to decide that, Stephen? You? McConaughey's voice was deadly quiet now, more dangerous than when he was shouting. You get to be the arbiter of which thoughts are acceptable? You get to decide who deserves respect and who doesn't? The question hung in the air like an indictment. For a moment, Colbert seemed to realize he had gone too far, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. When those thoughts hurt people, yes. When those ideas lead to violence and oppression, absolutely. McConaughey shook his head slowly, a look of disgust crossing his face. You know what, Stephen? I came here tonight thinking we could have a conversation. Maybe disagree on some things, but do it respectfully. Like adults. But you're not interested in conversation. You're interested in destruction. He started to remove his microphone, his movements deliberate and final. You want to know what hurts people? This does. This toxic, performative hatred. This need to destroy anyone who doesn't conform to your exact worldview. Colbert realized his guest was preparing to leave and made one last desperate attempt to maintain control. Don't you dare walk out on me. We're not finished here. McConaughey looked up at him with cold eyes. Oh, we're finished, Stephen. We're definitely finished. He dropped his microphone on the chair and turned toward the audience. I apologize to all of you for what you had to witness tonight. This isn't what television should be. This isn't what conversation should be. You can't. Just leave, Colbert shouted after him, his voice cracking with desperation and rage. You can't drop your pseudo-intellectual garbage and then run away when someone challenges you. McConaughey stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. I'm not running away, Stephen. I'm walking away. From you, from this toxic environment, and from whatever this show has become. Good luck with your ratings. With that, he strode off the stage, leaving Colbert standing alone behind his desk, chest heaving, face flushed with humiliation and anger. The studio audience sat in shocked silence, many pulling out phones to capture the aftermath of what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked-about moments in late-night television history. The cameras continued rolling as Colbert stood there, clearly struggling to regain his composure, his hands gripping his desk so tightly his knuckles were white. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity before he finally managed to croak out, "We'll be right back after this commercial break." But everyone knew there would be no coming back from this.